All right. We've spent a fair amount of time at this point talking about how to calculate probabilities of events. I want to take a bit of a, sort of a side track at this point and look at a scenario where we actually see what probability does for us rather than just figuring out how likely it is that something happens. So I want to talk about what we call the expected value of a probability experiment. So the idea is, imagine you're playing a game and you've got to roll some dice. What might I expect to get out of a typical roll? Or another example I like to draw on is the game show Deal or No Deal. So you get one of those briefcases from Howie Mandel at the start of the show, and you want to know how much you might expect to have in that case based on what's happened in the game at a given point in time. That's kind of the idea. So you can think of this in some sense as like a long-term average. You'll see as the examples shake out, very often the expected value of an experiment does not come out to be something that is itself a possible outcome. So keep that in mind. One more thing, expected values really only make sense if you're dealing with an experiment where your outcomes make sense in terms of numerical responses. So talking about like an expected card draw, it doesn't really work unless you find some way to assign a numerical value to each individual card so you can kind of work it out. It's not, like I said, we'll tend to stick to things where like dice rolling and other events like that occur. We'll also see some more practical applications. Anyway, so the PowerPoint slides break down expected value calculations into a three-step process. So basically, we want to list out all the possible outcomes our experiment has, how likely each of those are. So I usually do this via a table. You don't necessarily have to, but I think it expedites the process. So let's take a look at an example as we sort of talk through the steps of the process here. So like I said, I like doing stuff involving dice. So let's say we're rolling a single six-sided die at the moment. So it's possible you get a 1. It's possible you get a 6. So like I said, I'm going to build out a table of this stuff. I'm going to run out of room because my handwriting is big, but you got the idea. There's all my possible outcomes. Now, I'm also going to want to identify each of these probabilities, the probabilities associated with each of these rolls. So assuming you've got a fair die, then it's just as likely you get a 1 as a 6, right? So, all of these probabilities should be 1/6. Okay, so we got that. All right, we've got the outcomes, we've got their probabilities. To calculate an expected value, our next move is to multiply each outcome by its corresponding probability. So if you're doing this as a table, you could write it out if you wanted to, but to be honest, I usually just kind of sketch it out like this. Just an X for multiplication. I know I usually use dots, but a dot can get lost in the table format. So I like that. And then I'll write out those results underneath here. So we have 1/6. If you wanted to reduce the fractions, you can. It's not a big deal here. Based on what we see in the next step, you'll sort of see why I'm not doing it. But so I've got all of those guys written out right there. And we usually use the letter E as a shorthand for expected value. So, if you don't want to, I guess use something else. But, all right. So we've worked out the product of each of these outcomes by its probability. The last step in our process is we add these guys together. So that's part of why I didn't simplify the fractions. Because, if I add all these up, then it's a lot easier if the denominators are all the same, because then I can just kind of add together the numbers across the top of this thing. And 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 + 5 + 6, when you work that out, that should give you 21/6. You can cut the fraction down if you wanted to, or for what it's worth. If you preferred a decimal response, I get that. 3.5 is what you'd end up getting there. So that's one example of the expected value process in action. And I did want to use this to point out, as it turns out, you're never going to get a 3.5 when you roll a single die. But the idea is if you, say, I don't know, had a class full of students that you put to work rolling dice to gather a slew of data for you, that's what you'd expect, like the average to be, somewhere in the ballpark, assuming you've got, fair dice that you're rolling. Okay, so that's one example. I wanted to take a look at another one where it turns out you don't have this strict mechanical format of everything is equally likely. So the deal or no deal example is kind of the same thing. You're just as likely to have the 1 penny case as the $1 million case when you first make your choice, that kind of thing. So turns out it still involves rolling dice. So you'll see in the slides, I've got a reference to a particular card game that my family and I like to play called Dragonwood. So it has a particular set of dice, that are 6-sided, but they don't follow the same 1 through 6 format. On one side of the die, there's a 1. On 2 sides of the die, there's a 2. On 2 sides of the die, there's a 3, and then on the last side, there's a 4. So you cannot roll a 6 on the dice in question. So I would normally go through a long-winded explanation. I really do recommend Dragonwood. It's a fun little game. It's pretty quick in terms of teaching somebody to play it. So, but anyway, so I'm not going to delve too deeply into the mechanics. We've got mathematics to do. So in this instance, our table looks a little bit different, and it fits a little better on here because we've only got 4 possible outcomes: a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. All right. So now the probabilities again are a little bit different because some of the numbers show up more than once on the faces of the die. So we've only got a 1 in 6 chance that we get a 1. Same thing over here for the 4. So the high and the low values, they're skewed out over that way. So the 2 guys in the middle appear on 2 faces of the die here. So note the probabilities that you have when you're working through one of these things, if you add them all up, they should, sum to 1 because you want to cover all the possible, results of your given experiment. So yeah, you can check those do in fact add up to 1 if you just kind of combine everything in this bottom row. All right, so following through my process, let's multiply these guys together again. You get 1/6, 4/6. Again, if you wanted to reduce this, feel free. But based on what we're going to do next, it's a little bit easier if you just kind of roll with it with the fractions. All right. So again, I've got all these products worked out. Expected value says I want to add these guys up. So 1 plus 4 is 5, plus another 6 is 11, plus 4 brings me up to 15 if I'm doing my arithmetic right, and I'm pretty sure I am. So we have 15 over 6. Again, you can cancel it out as a fraction, or if you prefer the decimal result, it turns out the expected value of one of these Dragonwood dice is a little bit lower. It's only 2.5 instead of 3.5. And like I said, I'm trying real hard not to get distracted on the mechanics of the game. It's a cool little exercise. But anyway, so we've done some dice rolling. Again, maybe you're thinking about this in terms of why would this matter if I'm not taking a math class? Maybe I don't like playing lots of board and card games. It turns out expected values are actually pretty important to a fair number of industries. There are there are jobs out there for what's called actuaries. You could shorthand describe that as like a professional risk calculator. Insurance companies tend to employ many of them because expected values are important there in terms of how likely it is that somebody's going to need to pay out on a particular insurance policy. So that next example talks about a totally not fictitious insurance company, and let's take a look at some of their data. So I've taken the liberty of translating the table from the slides. I dropped the dollar signs from the expected claim data that our insurance company has on whoever owns this particular policy. I've also gone ahead and converted the probabilities that a particular claim total ends up getting filed into decimals. Be in the habit of that. We don't usually work with percentages just as they are. So the idea is we want to figure out where we need to set it like a per term premium. I think it says annual, which feels weird because I'm used to insurance being on like 6-month scales, but whatever. So they're trying to figure out where to set the premium to break even. Naturally, they'd probably set it higher so they make a profit, but you get the idea. So in order to break even, you'd basically end up wanting to set the premium equal to your expected claim value on a policy of this type. So yeah, we can use our table to calculate that expected claim value. So same idea, multiply each of my claim totals by its corresponding probability, expressed as a decimal, not a percentage. I'll dispense with breaking it down, in chunks here. So we've already kind of let the cat out of the bag. We multiply, then add. So 2,000 times 0.15, I got 300 out of that. 4,000 times 0.08. Again, remember, move the decimal twice. It's 0.08, not 0.8. So this gives me 320. 6,000 times 0.05 is another 300. That's an ugly 300, but you get the idea. 0.01 times 8,000 gives me 80. And 10,000 times 0.01 would give me 100. So, last step, we add all these guys together. If I'm doing my arithmetic right, my expected claim value would be $1,100. So that's sort of the annual premium you'd want to set for if you were, working for this insurance company to figure out, how your company breaks even on policies of this type. So that's sort of a lead in to talking about expected value calculations. I want to take a look at sort of an additional wrinkle in some examples in our next video.